Hey guys, I'm Ryan, this is Future Riffs, and today we are going to discuss picking patterns. So, picking patterns. We're going to do a lot of videos on picking patterns. We're going to do probably several videos on fingerstyle playing as well. But really what we're going to look at today is picking patterns based around chords, stagnant chords in your left hand. That way there's less movement in the left hand. We can really focus on our right-handed techniques. So time to expose myself a little bit here. I'm left-handed, but I play right-handed. I think everyone should, and for a bunch of reasons. The big one is finances. Any guitar that's flipped left-handed in factory is going to cost more because it's going to be a limited run and a little bit more expensive to buy. But I started on piano and then transferred to cello, which I hope to bring you guys some cello and piano videos in the future as well. But those instruments, you only play them one way. No one plays cello left-handed. If you go to a private instructor, they're not going to let you flip those strings around. Same with piano. There is no piano that is the opposite direction. So I started playing guitar right-handed, and the thing that I struggled with the absolute most was picking. With cello, the bow is a little bit easier to wield, I would say, than a pick. Because you drag it across the string, and there's less, especially in the beginning days of playing cello or classical string instruments in general, there is less movement that you have to worry about with that right hand. But when you play with a pick, it is, in my opinion, it was very difficult to use that tool with my right hand being left-handed, so I got really obsessed with picking patterns because I thought they sounded so cool. They were so full and lush sounding, and it drove me insane because I could fret the chord, I could come up with a cool chord, and then my aim was just so weak. So let's see if we can cure some picking pattern issues with some really simple exercises. In most of our videos, I like to use first position chords. That way everyone knows the chord and we can focus on what the technique is that we're basing everything around. I'm going to use slightly fancier chords today. I'll try to explain them in a way that it'll be really easy for all of us to kind of just grab hold of. I'm going to be playing these 7/9 shapes. I'm putting my middle finger on 7th fret of the A string. My pointer finger is on 6th fret of the D string. My pinky finger is on 8th fret of the G. And then my ring finger is on, my ring finger is on 7th fret of the B. For a second, I thought I made a mistake there, but nope. So we have 7, 6, 8, 7, and it gives you this awesome, awesome chord. I am using both of my open E's as well, since this is an E 7/9. Love it. And then I can move this up here, do the same at A. I can still get those open strings if I want because they work with my key signature. Bring in that bass on the bottom there. It's the exact same shape, except that now my middle finger, instead of being at 7, is at 12. Everything else follows the same deal. So we'll have 12, 11, 13, 12. 12, 11, 13, 12. And then I'm going to use this same shape one more time, all the way down at C. This breaks key signature, but it's a really pretty break. So I can use those open strings on this as well, which gives me kind of like this little E minor over C major kind of sound. So these are the chords that we're going to be picking through today. The first thing that we're going to do is run this pattern straight down and straight back up, down and up. I'm going to be really talking a lot about different forms of picking today. So right now we will be picking directionally. We'll be going straight down and we'll be going straight back up. Whenever you're doing this and your plan is to send and return to go up and down, like that, you want to turn around one string earlier than you'd think. So I go down, 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 up on my E string because I'm turning around and coming back the other way. Up, 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 down, 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 up, 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 up. So let me be quiet and I'll play it, okay? I kind of like to accent my first note going down and my first note coming back up. That way I can keep myself metered with a nice tempo. You can always practice to a metronome with these types of things. That will increase your playing tenfold. Some people don't like the pressure of practicing to a metronome. I would tell you to not worry about it, except that if you go to a recording session and you want to record your licks, they're going to want you to play it to a click track, a metronome. So you're going to want to practice to a metronome at some point, whether it's early in the game or later in the game, your call. It's also a nice way to be able to track your progress because you can measure in numbers how much faster you're getting, which is a pretty nice thing to be able to do, to know that at the beginning of the week you were playing at 80 and now you're playing at 115. It'll feel cool. It'll feel really cool. So anyway, so let's look at this first one. I'm going down, turning around, and coming back up with up picks at the bottom string. I'm going to go ahead and play all three of the chords that we're looking at as well. So we're going to go. Just transferring my chord, just moving back, and then all the way down. So I'm picking really hard and really articulate. As I speed up and as I want to control my dynamics, I'll back way off on how hard I'm picking. And get those different beautiful dynamics. And that just comes over time, that you're able to control your speed and your harshness of pick. It's just getting really acquainted with the technique. So that's the first one. Let's go ahead and let's do this same right hand process with an easier set of chords, okay? I won't only be using those 7 add 9s because I know that they're kind of funky. So let's go ahead and grab some first position chords and pick through those as well. Let's do a B minor. So I'm going to pick starting from the A string. And I'm going to follow the same pattern that I was saying earlier. Down until I make it to my last string, and then I change direction. So I'm going down, 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 up, up, up. A sus. My only goal through that chord progression there was just to keep a steady tempo and to keep the weight on each string that I wanted to achieve. You don't want to sloppily pass through patterns where some notes are really heavily picked and some are really quietly picked, where your speed changes up and down, because in short, your brain doesn't want to keep that information as muscle memory, so you won't continue to grow in your pattern. You want to play everything as slow and as deliberate as you need to at first before increasing your speed. So if you need to grab that B minor chord and start here, Nothing. Yes. Slower too. No big deal. And I started with a lot of anger trying to play through any of these patterns. I felt like I was holding my pick weird, which, by the way, I always hold my pick with only 2 fingers, and I like to use jazz 3s. Shout out to very, very firm picks. I'm using an Ultex one today. Any of the materials are fine in my opinion. I like playing with a very, very hard pick, specifically because it does not bend, and I can predict that it's not going to bend. And that might sound a little redundant, but with a flexible pick, with someone who would claim that picking isn't their strong suit, a flexible pick means that there's unpredictability. The pick might be more flexible than you'd expect. I know that this pick is like a rock, and it is always going to feel the exact same when I strike the strings. And the fact that they're really, really pointy and kind of small, it's like you can only hold them one proper way. So love jazz 3s. Pretty much the only pick I play with: acoustic guitar, electric guitar, whatever. So yeah, so I hold my pick with 2 fingers and I work through these patterns. And when I started, I was awful. Awful. I wanted to play the Ain't Talking About Love riff. That's as much of that as I can play, I think. Not because I can't play it, but because of rules. But that was the picking pattern I really wanted to get after, were those little Van Halen patterns and, of course, Stairway and things like that. I wanted to be able to play them. I couldn't do it. And I figured out that it was really because I was rushing and not taking my time to learn the technique. So grab yourself a set of chords you're comfortable with and practice slow passes up and down. Nothing fancy at all. And then you can start making them fancier and dressing them up a lot. Now, that is the first technique: downs and ups, downs and ups. The next would be to do some alternate picking. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of a lot of different picking styles. I got really obsessive with picking because I wanted to be able to play really fast. I loved metal, love metal, and I wanted to be able to rip through licks. So I tried to learn every type of picking technique there is out there. So the next one that we're going to look at within picking patterns will be alternate picking. When I was running that intro riff to this video, there's quite a bit of turning around. I don't run the pattern straight down and straight back up. There is a bunch of changes in it. So I go down, 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 skip. This one's hard to think about slow. Give me 1 second. Okay, got it. So I go down, 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 up, down, up, down, up, down, up, up. So let me slow it way, way down, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Watch my right hand. So there's that turnaround. It took me a second to kind of lock into it at that speed because I was practicing it at a faster pattern. When you start increasing your speed, you lock onto different little points of access in the riff, so it can be difficult sometimes to slow things down that you've worked up to a particular speed. So, long story short, you get to see me make a bunch of mistakes slowing this riff down. Anyway, I made this pattern to fill out a standard bar with a chord, but I wanted it to sound like I was doing so much more than just playing a chord. So instead of playing the chord straight down and straight up, there's not even enough notes to fill the bar the way I want to, just playing it up and down. So I had to fill. So I start working my way through these slightly more complicated patterns. So it makes it to where it fits my phrasing a lot better. Now, let's take an alternate picking pattern back in first position in a comfort zone. Let's grab an A minor chord. And let's work through this pattern. Down, down, up, down, up, down, up, up. So down, down, up, down, up, down, up, up. And then the pattern repeats. The craziest part about this is that if you mess that picking pattern up, you might recover, or it might throw the whole thing off where your pick is going the wrong direction on particular parts. That's why it's so important to kind of establish the route that you want to take in each picking pattern. There is a term that you might hear your local guitar teacher say about picking on the outside of the strings. And what that means is directionally, if you're going to continue to a lower string or a higher string, it matters which side of the prior string you pick on. So that's why I'm mixing my pattern up so much and not just trying to slam everything in a down pattern. Be much, much harder than establishing a rhythm. Cool. So as I go through these picking patterns, I establish my pattern, and then I need to practice it slow. So that one right there, that alternate. Sit right there on that until you feel really comfortable. At whatever speed you need to practice it. Then you're able to pick up speed gradually as you practice it. Then start adding chords. Do the same picking pattern and add your chords in. So go, or not make mistakes first, right? So just to refer back a little bit, our order is practice downs and ups first, and then practice alternate picking patterns. So let me give you guys a specific one to practice. I know that I leave a lot of my lessons a little bit open-ended, like you have the power to choose whatever pattern you want. Some people, I guess, don't like that as much, and they'd rather me just tell them a specific pattern to practice that will make them better. Let's do A minor to C major to G major. So I'm going to pick that same pattern that I was doing with the A minor earlier to C. My right hand does not change at all. With G, I'm also not going to change my right hand pattern. I'm going to leave it alone, which means that I'm not going to hear that rooted G note at all. I'm going to hear a B because I'm only picking as low as the A string. I'm totally fine with that sound. It sounds really pretty, actually. So you're able to go through this pattern, do each chord maybe 2 full rounds of the picking pattern, and then move on to the next chord fluidly. Your goal is to switch chords without losing structure of your tempo or picking pattern. You don't want to hear the switch. You just want it to happen. So it should be A, C, G, back to A, minor. If you do that one right there, taking it as slow as you need to, you are going to be able to pick up picking patterns, no problem. So that's a great place to start. The next step after that would be probably some string skipping. I have a real specific pattern I like to work on with string skipping that involves 9 chords. I like these big shapes based in the key of E, C sharp minor 9, this A over C sharp, and then E major 9, or E major 9 like this, depending on what we're going to do next. String skipping is a little bit more of a difficult technique, and you're getting a little bit of it in the other patterns, but when you're really talking about string skipping, you're doing a lot of string skipping. So, and string skipping just means that you're hopping over a string you're not using to get to another string. It takes a lot of aim. I'd highly recommend, if you don't already play with your fingers anchored, which means to loosely let them sit on the body of your guitar while you're playing, I would try it out. I let my pinky rest. I'm not pressing. I'm not trying to keep my pinky in one spot. I let it rest on the instrument. That way I can focus on my left hand, or looking at a band member, or looking at a piece of sheet music. That way I don't have to stare at my right hand to make sure I'm going to play the right notes when they're all over the instrument. So let me slow down this pattern here. I'm going to go from C sharp to A to E major 9. And my pattern's going to change a little bit on the E major 9. This is another exercise I'd love to hear you guys do. I think you'd like it too. So 4th fret, I'm starting with 4th fret, index finger on 4th fret, ring finger on 6th fret, and then pinky finger on 8th fret, quite the stretch. And that's starting on the A string, so that's A, D, and G in a row. The chord without the picking pattern sounds like this. Real wide open, love it. I can throw that E in there too if I want. Next chord, I just lift my pointer finger off. These fingers stay the same, and I use that open A. Love that. And then E major 9 is a complete movement to first position. Middle finger, 2nd fret of the A string, pinky, 4th fret of the D string, pointer finger, 1st fret of G. So I go. This is my favorite chord right now. So it changes a lot, but right now E major 9. Love that chord. So let me pick through this pattern. I'll pick it fast, or up to speed, I guess, and then I'll slow it down and show you guys what I'm doing. Time. Okay, cool. So I'm going to slow it down. I'm using 2 picking patterns. The C sharp minor and the A are the same picking pattern. And then when I go to my E major 9, I'm doing our first picking pattern from the day, where I just go straight down and straight back up. So this one here, I'm going to play it slow for you. Quite a lot of string jumping, so really focus. So you have A, D, B, G, E, G, B, G, string names. Real slow again. Then I go to A, then to E, and that's that first pattern. Cool. I think that's as far as I'm going to take you guys on picking patterns today. Try to work on some of those patterns and let me know what you think. Comment, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them, me or Steven or the people that work with us on this awesome page, and make sure to subscribe. I found out that I have to say that out loud and not just think it in my heart, because you guys don't hear it when I don't say it out loud. Follow us, subscribe. All right, have an awesome time. It is raining yet again outside of our Central Florida studio. So, I don't know, maybe I'll go film a sad music video outside and let my hair get real poofy and enjoy the humidity, and then maybe get hit by lightning or something. I don't know, I could just stay inside and play more guitar.